Northwest Liberty News, picking the lock on the shackles of tyranny.
Machines are gonna fail, and the system's gonna fail.
The past is past, the future's now.
Don't look at me. I think these people are completely nuts.
Sometimes trouble just follows a man.
There is another organism on this planet that follows the same pattern. Do you know what it is? A virus.
Can't you stop your lips from flapping for 2 little minutes?
It's because I'm white.
I'm a man. I'm sensitive. I need to feel loved. I need to be desired.
I'm rapping this is coming a big underground success in this town.
It's a question of methods. Everybody wants results, but nobody wants to do what they have to do to get them done.
And now, coming to you live from Kalispell, Montana, brought to you by Northwest Liberty News, it's Montana Gazette Radio with your host, James White. Okay, I'm your host, James White. This is Montana Gazette Radio, brought to you by Northwest Liberty News. Thanks so much for joining me here in the broadcast on this very first day of December 2020. And it's we have a wonderful guest today to kick off this first day of December, which I think is going to be quite a month, a one to remember, that's for sure. And I'm talking about Ammon Bundy. Ammon's been on the show numerous times. He's an American patriot. He's a truth activist, and he puts himself right out there, right in the mix, which is what we all have to do. And he's certainly, I consider him a friend, and have interviewed many members of his family. Went out there to the Bundy Ranch when all that was going on back in 2014. So at this point, if you watch this show long enough, you certainly know who my next guest is, Ammon Bundy. And we're going to welcome Ammon Bundy. Ammon, thanks so much for joining us here on Montana Gazette Radio. Oh, let me turn your mute button off here. Hold on. Hold on a minute. My bad. There we go. Okay, cool. You in? Thanks, Ammon. Appreciate you joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You're
Absolutely.
Okay, man. So, gee whiz, you've been on this broadcast or my other broadcast numerous times. I don't think I've ever, since we've been speaking, and for I don't know how many years I've known you, 4, 5, 6 years now, whatever it's been. I don't know if I've ever seen the state of things like I've seen it now. This has got to be one of the most unusual times that I've ever been alive, and I think we're really sort of at a crossroads here, Ammon, in a lot of ways. And I think the future of you and I, and the future of our children, is going to depend upon some of the things that are going to be happening here, coming up pretty quickly. So, can you comment on that? You may disagree. What's your thoughts on this whole thing we got going on here?
No, I don't disagree at all. It does concern me about how the majority, by far, most people do not see what is happening. And we saw it clear back when the whole pandemic started, if you want to call it that. We've been saying from the very beginning. I mean, it was the first week I was writing articles about how this appears, speaking of the coronavirus, how it appears that it's going to be used as a massive tool for tyranny. And I was ridiculed, on Facebook and, on the different platforms as ridiculed and saying, no, it's just a virus, it's just a sickness. And, we talked about the possibility of them using this to do many different things, and they have done all of those things and even more. So we absolutely have to wake up, at least enough of us that we can put resistance together and hopefully save our republic, save our liberty, and pass it on to our children, because we are in tumultuous times.
One of the things that I find somewhat troubling and surprising somewhat. I mean, you always heard that 70 to 80% of the members of Congress were compromised, or they had dirt on them, or were blackmailing them, or I always thought, maybe, but that number seems maybe a little bit high. But now that you see this whole thing with the voter fraud and how many of these people are literally standing behind the results of an election that Ammon, how in the world can, in one place it was 721% of the voting population showed up to vote, and frequently over 100% of the population. I mean, this is open fraud, it's naked fraud. There's no other way to describe it. Yet these people that apparently are conservatives or Republicans are standing behind these bogus results. I think there's a lot of people that are going to be, revealed for not being the people that we thought they were in the long run. Ammon, I think we're seeing that a lot. You seen that where you're from?
Yeah, and the ultimate tragedy of it all is the lack of confidence that the people are having in government in general. Because as soon as the only thing that upholds government, the only thing that upholds the law, which does a tremendous amount of good, right? I mean, the law is what holds peace together, holds tranquility. The law is what's supposed to hold the guilty perpetrator at bay. The law is what is supposed to protect the innocent. The law is what makes it so that we can have property, so that we can prosper, so that we can live free, so that we can benefit from the fruits of our labor. And as soon as people lose confidence in government, then they lose confidence in the law, which is the same thing as government, and you no longer have that. Then they start to seek for two things happen. One is the good people start to seek for other ways to protect themselves. They have to do that because they've lost confidence in the government. And the bad people no longer fear the law, so they go ahead and do blatant things like campaign fraud, like pulling the wool over the people's eyes when it comes to a pandemic, and they begin to trample on the people's rights like they don't mean anything, like there is no constitutional charter between the people and the government. And all of that is right now in great risk of collapsing, meaning the confidence of the people in the government will get so low that the government will not be able to sustain itself, will not be able to enforce law. And that's where we're at. And then we spin off into some type of tribal government where people are, trying to just find ways to protect themselves, and the wicked are just trying to unite enough to take rights away directly from the people. And I see that coming. That's happened almost in every society in one way or another. And if we continue, which I believe we're headed down that road very fast, it will happen here.
I mean, historically, the shot heard around the world was led by a pastor, Pastor Jonas Clark. These days, pastors are nowhere to be found. They have failed the country miserably, and I lay a lot of the responsibility. Now, of course, we all have our own free will and ability to act upon things as we see fit. However, the pastors, that aside, the pastors are supposed to be looking after their flock, tending to the flock. They've failed miserably, Ammon, and I think that is one of the main reasons that we're facing the turmoil and the godlessness, frankly, that we have in this society today. I mean, I've said on my show before, some of these people from BLM or Antifa, whatever they are, would set a house on fire with a child inside and then block the road so the fire department couldn't get down and put it out. I mean, those people are filled with an evil spirit to do something like that. And that's because I think pastors have failed. Ammon, any thoughts on that?
Well, they have failed, and there's probably maybe a lot of reasons that we could contribute to leading to that. But ultimately, we have allowed fear into our society, and we have allowed it to overcome faith. And you can't have fear and faith in the same realm and same vessel. And so, here we have become a society that's literally making all our decisions based upon fear. And our pastors should be out there being faithful. They should be out there, teaching people that not to be afraid, not to be afraid of a virus, not to be afraid of even death, not to be afraid of even government, not to be afraid, but to be to do the right thing and let the consequences follow. That's what they used to teach. That's what a faithful person teaches, to choose the right and let the consequences follow. And somehow now it's the pastors are becoming basically the pushers of basically what the government wants. And we see that pretty clearly when you look into history and look into medieval times, where the priest would anoint a king, and say that he was anointed by God, and then that king would act tyrannical. And so if the people wanted to rebel against him, then the priest would say, no, he's anointed by God. And then in return, the king would basically sanction the church as a state church, and together they would keep the people bound, because if it was certainly warranted to rid themselves of tyranny, then the people wouldn't do it because they were afraid they were going to offend God. It's important what the pastors do and how they react and how they teach people. And this, sectarianism that we see in our clergy today is a terrible thing. They should be speaking truth and not spewing fear and not trying to keep the people under control.
Interesting. I had a guest, J.D. Hall, on here a couple of a week or so ago, and we were talking about how many people are moving from other parts into Montana, and they're going to be looking for new churches. And I said, I asked him, I said, what do you think? I think I lost your video there. Are you still there audio wise? There you go. I asked him, I said, how do you, what's the, what's the criteria for people that are moving into new areas to look for a new church? He says, well, ask the pastor, did they close their church down where the government mandated that they close their church down? And if they say they did, you ask them why. If they asked it because they were worried about the community and they didn't want people to get sick, that's one thing. But if they did it because the government told them to, it's probably not the church that you want to be at. And I think that goes back to what you were saying, Ammon. Churches need to stand up. We have power. The people we are the government, and people have lost sight of that. If we just come together and stand up, they can't arrest us all. They can't throw us all in jail. There's just not enough room.
Yeah, no, that's always been the key. It's always in the people's hands. The power is always in the people's hands, because the government has no power without the people. The law is basically, it is the people's. Sorry about that. I'll get back to you here. Okay, what have we got going? I apologize.
No problem. Sorry, I think it's probably just a button away from getting back.
Yeah, I don't know. I got to find it. I apologize.
That's all right.
Anyway,
there you go.
That'll do it. There we go. Someone called me right in the middle of our conversation, so I apologize. So anyhow, yeah. So.
About the power of the people, it's always been in our hands. It's always been in our hands. The power's always been in our hands. We just don't exercise it. Which I think is what you're saying.
Yeah, thank you for putting me back on track. I got distracted there. So yeah, I mean, the government can't function. The government can't fund itself. The government they're not producers. They cannot exist without the people, and it just. The only thing that keeps the people, supporting a tyrannical government or a government that is based on, incorrect principles or, whatever it might be, is the people just being afraid. I mean, even look at examples of like ancient Egypt when they oppressed the Israelite people. They were in Egypt for 400 years. They were oppressed for at least a couple hundred years of that time. What if the Israelites just said, look, we're no longer going to do it. We're no longer going to build your homes, your building, your cities. We're no longer going to take care of your children. We're no longer going to feed you and support you. We're no longer going to do that. Yeah, they might have. The Egyptians probably would have beat them and whipped them and even killed many of them. But ultimately, they had it in their hand, the power in their hands to stop it. And I know that might be a more of an extreme example because we're not under that level of oppression yet. But the same thing is going on in the same power. We as a people need to understand that we have the power, and the way to make sure that that power is not abused by somebody else is to say no. And just simply say no and answer that question right up front.
I mean, you talk about it's not that oppressive yet. I'm going to flash this. I was going to talk about this after you got off before the next guest, but I'm going to pop this up there right now and take a look at that. Can you see that headline? The vaccine minister says that bars, restaurants, and cinemas will demand proof of vaccination before entry. Then the byline is, it would become virtually impossible to do anything if you don't have the vaccine. This is what their plan is all along, and I stated this on my broadcast before. I think once they saw how many people donned those masks and like pretty much subjected themselves to slavery, I think they said, okay, let's just move forward with our plan. These people obviously are already captured. So what I've talked about before is they're going to continue to close the circle of what you can do and make it tighter and tighter and tighter without the vaccines. People say, well, I'll just do this, I'll just do that. Okay, how about if you can't get gas and you can't pay your phone bill and you can't pay your water bill until you show proof that you have a vaccination? That's what they're moving for, Ammon. They want total and complete control, and this whole coronavirus vaccine, mandatory vaccine thing is a big, big part of it. Do you see it the same way?
Oh, absolutely. You said it very well. We can thank those who put on a mask. We can thank them because now the question is not whether the government has the authority to force us to cover our faces with a man-made filter. Now the question is whether the government has authority to inject an unknown chemical into our body. If we would have answered the question with masks, then we wouldn't be having to answer this question with an injection and health cards and the restriction of travel, the restriction of goods going into our stores. None of that would happen, but it is going to happen. It is without doubt going to happen. I mean, I don't have the ability to present videos to you the way we're speaking now, but I have video after video, document after document, as you probably do, that is, evidence that they intend on forcing everybody to take the vaccine. They don't even really understand the vaccine, or if they do, they're not being forthright with it, which is probably more the truth. I've got both document and record from the Department of Defense and videos of a 4-star general reporting that they have the vaccine and that they have a plan to distribute that vaccine within 24 hours, and that all citizens of the United States of America must receive it. That's his own words. And he goes on to say that it will be an equitable distribution. He goes on to say that there will be no haves or have-nots. He goes on then to talk about the local jurisdictions, the states and the cities, how they will be responsible for counting for and making sure that everybody receives it. This is their plan. And we've got several other documents that talk about how, in order to implement this, there will be the restriction of interstate travel, then a restriction from city to city travel, and how this travel will remain restricted for those who do not participate in basically the vaccine plan. And I mean, we've seen it, right? We've seen it with the mask. We've already seen the restrictions of going into our stores, going to businesses. It's coming.
Were you arrested?
People don't wake up.
Did you get arrested? You got arrested at a couple times recently, haven't you? Over the mat? Was it twice? You got arrested?
Yeah, I got arrested twice.
Right.
And then I've multiple times have told businesses that, because this, I want to be clear. I believe that we have the right to trade. We are free and we have the right to trade with each other. I believe that is a God-given right to be able to trade freely with each other. Therefore, a business that is built up by an individual or individuals is a private business. I believe that. Now, some businesses have been subsidized. There might be some questions there, subsidized by the government. However, multiple businesses, like for example, I went into Costco, this is several months ago, and I didn't have a mask, and I have a membership, so I have an agreement with them to go into their store. Went in there with my wife to shop, and the manager come up and says that we have to have a mask, and we kindly declined, and he says, no, that's our policy. And I just continue to shop, and then he says, well, this is a private business. And I said, well, I recognize that it is a private business, that it's your business, and or Costco's business. And they said, he goes, because it's a private business, that we could trespass you. And I go, I fully recognize that. And I said, I just want you to understand, though, that you've come in our communities. You have basically, in a lot of ways, took out our local suppliers because of your buying power and your size. We've allowed you to come in our communities. We've become dependent on you to give us supplies, or food supplies mostly. And now you're not going to let us have that supply, those food supplies, unless we comply to your political agenda. And I said, because of that, I totally recognize that it's your business, that it's private, that you can trespass me. I go, because we've become dependent and we've allowed you to come in our businesses or into our communities, I go, I'm going to make you trespass me and remove me and call the officers to remove me. And they chose not to, and I continued to shop and checked out like normal. But this is what we're facing, and they're ratcheting down more and more. And pretty soon it's going to come to the point where, you won't be able to travel, you won't be able to purchase, you won't be able to basically move, you won't be able to do anything. And in some cases, some of these records or these reports that are official reports are actually saying that if you do not participate in these vaccine programs, that you will be deemed an extreme health risk. And even in some of the more extreme reports, there will be quarantine and isolation indefinitely with you and your family.
They're just going to basically throw the Constitution
results
out. They're just throwing the Constitution out the window. Then it's just not even going to matter at that point. They're just trampling it and setting it on fire and throwing it in the ash heap at that point. If they're going to go that far.
But the people have let them, Jim. Just like you said, I mean, you made the point. The people have let them do it, and if you let them do it with masks, then they're going to do it. They're going to continue to vaccine. Then they're going to continue to quarantine. Then they're going to go to health card. I mean, it's the way it is because the people have not answered the question of whose right it is. They have allowed the government officials, those in the government positions, they have allowed them to believe that they have the authority and the right to control people's bodies.
And I brought that point up before. You have to make it a choice, folks. Do you own your body, or does the government own your body? That's what it really comes down to. Do you own it, or do the government owns it? Because if you turn it over to the government, it's going to end up like every other plan the government's involved in: destroyed, wrecked, ruined.
That's right.
It's pretty much they can't build anything. They can only destroy. They can only destroy things. They don't make anything, like you stated before. The only function the government is take money from people that want to work and give it to people that don't want to work, or their friends, typically, bankers.
After they line their own pockets with.
Yeah, of course. We can see that now. What's going on with this voting thing and all the machine stuff, and people are getting enriched, just selling out their country. I mean, I just can't believe, Ammon. It's so easy for people to just sell out their country these days. Just sell it out. It's like, big deal. I'm amazed.
So one thing that you remind me of, I don't know where the term came from, but basically that you cannot be patriotic. You cannot be patriotic about something if you have been conquered. You can't. You know, a state or a city or a nation cannot be patriotic if they're conquered. And that's just a fact, a historical fact, and a fact in general. Even somebody who is being oppressed as an individual, let's say they're being molested or whatever, they don't have confidence in themselves. They lose total self-confidence because they have been conquered and they're oppressed. And that's the way it feels like we are right now. It's like we've lost our spark for liberty, our spark for life. And is it because, our souls are conquered? Is it because we feel conquered, because we feel oppressed? I don't understand why the American people are letting freedom and liberty be just stripped completely from them. Do they not love their children?
Right, but we've been so far removed from our founding fathers gave up their life and not their life but their name and their fortune, and I mean they put it all on the line. I mean it was tough back then. I just watched the movie The Patriot. If you've never seen that movie The Patriot with Mel Gibson, now I know it's a theatrical depiction of what happened, but it did show accurately that was a tough. They fought tough battles to get where we're at now in this country, and we've been so far removed from our foundation and our heritage, Ammon, that
Right.
people don't understand the value of it. See, that's the problem. They don't realize how valuable it is and just how bad it would be if it's lost. We just haven't grasped that yet. Hopefully that's coming, but it's got to come fast because the other side, they're moving at breakneck speed to get this whole thing implemented. And they've been planning it for a long time. We're going to take a quick commercial break here in a minute, though, and we get back on the other side. You guys in 2014, when you stood up to the BLM, I mean, that was, even now, 6 years later, coming up on, I guess, probably 6.5 years later or so. I think it was April of 2014. Is that right? April of 2014?
Correct.
Little did we know, maybe you did, that stand that you took back then was that was the shot heard around the world. That's what that sparked a lot of different people to stand up. And I think that if more people would have looked at that event in 2014 that your family was in and rallied behind you, a lot of people did. But that is what we need. That's what we need now. I'm not saying we need a standoff with the BLM, but we need that type of a shot in the arm to get patriots motivated and to get people to understand that this is, I mean, because you guys they were going to run right over you guys. I think they would have I'm telling you, Ammon, this is what I think. I think they would have tried to kill some of you guys if they wouldn't have had all the patriots show up. I really believe that.
Absolutely. And what that did, James, ultimately what happened there is it showed us the pattern or the example of what we have to do as a people to preserve our rights. That is the pattern. I believe that's what God showed us. I believe that's what was so impactful, is the pattern that we have to follow in order to preserve liberty here in America and across the country. We have to do that. And that is when people's rights are being infringed upon, one person or those people say no, and then other people around them come and surround them and stand with them. That is how we will defend liberty. That's how we must do it, and that's how we'll have to do it through the craziness that we're experiencing right now.
We'll take a quick commercial break here, Ammon. On the other side, we get back on the other side. Can you stick around for a little bit longer? You good?
Absolutely.
Okay, we get back on the other side. We're going to talk about some solutions, and one of the main solutions, and I know that I've had Sheriff Mack on the show numerous times. I know you're friends with him. And it's a constitutional sheriff is a key, and we're going to talk about moving forward what we can do to get together, because as you stated, that seems to be the only chance that we have, because no one's going to fly in on with a cape and superpowers and save us. It's not going to happen. That's kind of Hollywood, and we've been conditioned to believe that someone's going to ride in and save us all. You're looking at the people that are going to save us right here. It's all of us, really, frankly. So let's take a quick commercial break. Ammon, we'll come back on the other side. We'll cover those points and more. You want to give out any websites or anything like that before we go to break? Anywhere you want to send people, or any information you want to get across?
Peoplesrights.org. That's where people are coming together, uniting in their neighborhoods. So peoplesrights.org, or you text rights to 80123. Again, you text rights to 80123 or go to peoplesrights.org. You can join your neighbor there and get together as a community of neighbors preparing to defend yourselves.
Peoplesrights.org, folks. Peoplesrights.org. Check that out. I'll try to put that in the chat room here. And what we'll do is we'll going to mute your microphone, take a quick commercial break. Be back in a couple of minutes here with the one and only Ammon Bundy here on Montana Gazette Radio. If you like classic cars, exceptional service, and a money-back guarantee, then the Corner Shop in beautiful downtown Kalispell is the place for you. Whether it's an oil change, engine diagnostic, suspension work, or brakes all around, the Corner Shop has you covered. With expert technicians and a free consultation on all services, you can't go wrong with the Corner Shop. Did I mention the classic cars? While you're waiting for your expert service to be performed, take a stroll through the showroom to see Kalispell's smoothest collection of classic cars. The Corner Shop is conveniently located at 1212 South Main, just south of the courthouse. The Corner Shop is open Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. till 5 p.m., so drop by for an appointment or call 755-7777. That's 755-7777. The Corner Shop, Kalispell's full-service auto repair facility.
Have you heard of Protovite? The most common health concern today is poor digestive health. Unlike ordinary supplements, Protovite is a liquid multi-nutrient formula with patent-pending absorption technology. A published scientific study proves that Protovite is nutrition that gets in 100% of the time. Protovite uses the highest quality ingredients to rapidly nourish every cell in your body.
My name is Sandra. 6 weeks ago, when I started taking Protovite, I was on 14 medications, from everything for blood pressure to fibromyalgia. In the first 10 days, my blood sugar dropped 50 points, and my fibromyalgia pain is gone. And so was 12 of the 14 medications that I was taking.
Protovite, nutrition that gets in. Buy Protovite now.
Thank you, Protovite, for giving my life back.
These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Work with your doctor when taking medications. Make Protovite part of your healthy lifestyle.
Okay, folks, if you want to support this broadcast, you can go to bloodboost.net. That's bloodboost.net, and check out all the full line of Protovite products there. I take it every day. It's great stuff. It all helps boost your immune system, which is a key these days to good health. Actually, it's always a key to good health, is to have a healthy immune system, but you can certainly enhance that by going to bloodboost.net. High-quality products, the highest quality products, they're all formulated by Bill Downs, who's been on the show numerous times. If you want to support this program, hit the like button. That'd be great. If you just like the video and share it around. I've been hammered quite a bit with censoring and shadow banning, but we're going to continue to move forward and try to get the truth out as much as we can, because that's what's going to wake the people up, is the truth. You can go to MontanaDailyGazette.com. That's MontanaDailyGazette.com or NorthwestLibertyNews.com to support us that way. And we look for your support to have great guests on the show like we have here today, Ammon Bundy. Ammon is an American patriot, and he's an organizer. And his brother, if ever his brother, they all know their stuff. I think, if I remember, Ammon, didn't Ryan go up against, it wasn't like 17 times or something. He went up against the prosecutors and beat them all 17 times. I think I brought that up last time. It's just amazing how, when you know the law and you take, let me take a mute button off. When you know the law and you actually take time to, there we go. Let me hit that right there. It's probably going to ask you to unmute it. Thanks. When you take the time to read into things, look into things, they're really, a lot of the stuff that they, in the law, quote unquote law, has been, it's under administrative law, and they've managed to really change, the essence of our rights and what they can. Here's the thing: there's things that are legal, and there's things that are lawful. They don't do things that are lawful most of the time. They do it legal, and that's the administrative sort of term. But lawful is the constitutional term, and they violate that often. You agree or disagree with that, Ammon?
Yeah, and we refused to allow them to do while they were prosecuting us is to set the priority or the precedence as the legal. We always insisted that the law had to be enforced and the trials that we were going through had to be based upon the lawful side of things, which is constitutional. And so, yeah, I mean, it made it a challenge for the prosecutors because the prosecutors don't even know the law. They only know what is legal. And so here we are, and Ryan did a tremendous job, if you want to say representing himself. But here we are, arguing the Constitution in front of the judge, in front of the jury, and the prosecutors, sorry, I got another call. But the prosecutors are sitting there trying to argue some legal precedent that was established, 2 years ago in some court somewhere in some district. And we're arguing the Constitution. We're arguing the Bill of Rights. We're arguing the Declaration of Independence. We're arguing the rights, the inherent rights of man that have been given to him by God. And you can't overcome that. Not when you understand it, and not when you have a jury that is willing to contemplate it. The challenge is the judge allowing you to speak that way in the court. For example, I was on the stand in the trial in Oregon for almost 4 days. I was quite, on the witness stand, testifying and being cross-examined for nearly 4 days. And each time I would try to use the Constitution, I would, break out the Constitution to read from it. The judge would say I wasn't allowed to read from the Constitution. And the excuse that she gave the jury, again, I apologize, sorry. The excuse that she gave the jury was that only she can interpret the Constitution. And she was fearful that if I was to be able to read the Constitution, that the jury might believe my interpretation of it. So therefore, I was not able to read it. So then what we had to do is we had to quote it. So we quoted it, and we were able to communicate with the jury of what the Constitution said. And we also, the same thing with the scriptures using the Bible. She would not allow us to read and the Bible or quote the Bible. She would, not allow us to read it. So therefore, we had to quote the scriptures, and the jury saw that, and ultimately, of course, we were found not guilty on all charges.
I just want to stop for a second and just cement what you just said. In a court of law here in America, you are not allowed to quote. You're not allowed to read directly from the Constitution or the Bible in a court.
That's correct.
I mean, are you kidding me? It doesn't get any farther away from the intentions of our founding fathers than I didn't put those together, and Ammon, until you said that. That is preposterous. I can't even believe you told me that.
Yep. They would not. The judge would not, in both Oregon and Nevada, would not allow us to directly read from the Constitution or from the Bible. We've seen in history, we see in the medieval times, it was illegal to have a Bible. It was illegal to read the Bible. It was illegal to translate the Bible. And the reasoning that it was given to the peasants was that the priests are the only one that can interpret the Bible. And therefore, the people just had to believe what the priest told them the Bible said. And that was so that, of course, the priests were doing that so that they can control the people. They didn't want the people to know what the Bible said. They didn't want the people to understand directly what the Lord was given the people in the Bible. So they made it a law. Well, that's exactly what's happening in our courts today. They made it a law where you cannot read the Bible or the scriptures in the court.
Yeah, what the great King Solomon say, there's nothing new under the sun. As we move forward here, Ammon, we talk about bringing people together and forming alliances with your neighbors, and if for nothing else, forget about going against the government, Ammon. They're releasing hardened criminals out of prisons and putting them on the street over this COVID thing. Yeah, I mean, you got to worry about them first, for crying out loud. I mean, what do you think about that? They're throwing guys like you in jail for not wearing a mask, but releasing, in some cases, I'm not joking, folks, hardened criminals back onto the streets. Bizarro world, Ammon. Can't believe I'm seeing it.
Well, so what we find ourselves in, as I will just say, as the good people of this country, and there are a lot of us, but we are being crushed in between tyranny on one end and anarchy on the other, if you will. And I know a lot of people have different terms or different meanings to anarchy, but hopefully you understand what I'm saying. The chaos and the lawlessness and the violence and so forth, you have that on one end, and then you got the tyranny on the other, and we're literally being crushed in between. And we have to respond to that, or at least prepare for that and unite. And the answer has always been the same. Liberty has been defended always the same, and that is the righteous uniting together and defending themselves against, tyranny and against anarchy, and in the preservation of their faith and their freedom and their family and their future. And that's what we have to do. So you need to get united with your neighbors. You need to understand those who will stand for liberty, who will stand beside you. You need to know who they are and understand them. You need to befriend them. You need to help prepare each other. And that's the only reason why we've built People's Rights. We have about 40,000 people in it now. And it's all about neighborhoods coming together. It's like a neighborhood watch on steroids. And we've created communication tools, a communication network where you can communicate quickly by text, by phone, by ham radio, by email, and by a secured message system that's unique to our system. So you can communicate. And so that's why we've been saying, hey, join People's Rights. Text rights to 80123 or go to peoplesrights.org and join there, because we have to be united. If we're not united, then the wicked will
overcome us.
us.
They'll overcome us.
Yep.
This is the site right here, folks. I think this is the right site, correct? Ammon, People's Rights right here.
Yep, that's it.
There you go,
Absolutely.
folks.
Yep,
peoplesrights.org. You can go there and sign up and become and then what happens? So when you join with your neighbors, and then obviously, does it give you like a map or some sort of a thing to say, hey, there's like 2 streets over there's a guy, and then around the corner there's another guy or gal or family? Is that how kind of that works?
So it's no, but the concept is the same. So what you're going to do is you're going to join. We don't ask for your address. We only ask for you to identify the area you live in. So there's going to be a map, and you're going to see the map, and you're going to say, okay, I live in that area. What it does is it connects you with all the other people that have joined in that area. But the way we connect, rather than giving all the people's information to everybody else, we didn't want to do that so that your information's not out there in the open. What we've done is we have found 3 to 5 people in each area that we vetted, that we know can be trusted, that understand the need to keep people's information inconspicuous, and we make it so that they are the ones that can see everybody in that area. And if there is a need, you reach out to them, and then they distribute that information to everybody else and unite everybody. And that's the way it works. And it has worked tremendous. We have made a huge impact in Idaho. Washington's made a huge impact. Oregon, Montana, Florida. We're now in probably about 3/4 of the states. We're growing rapidly. Hundreds of people a day are joining us. We're reaching up to close to having 40,000 people, and we believe we're just barely getting a start.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna look into that and sign up and promote it there, because I've been calling for a long time, Ammon. I do other work with CPS, the criminal syndicate known as CPS that take children without due process. I've often said, if we can have some sort of organization, when CPS showed up at your neighbor's door, if we can have everybody surround the house and go, you're not getting past us to get these children and sell them into sex slavery through your CPS system. And that is an excellent. That's fantastic. Something like that.
Just so you know, Jim, we've actually done that. Washington has done
No
that actually
kidding.
twice now.
Wow.
They've done it actually twice. They've even got the court just simply from their presence. The courts had emergency hearing and ended the entire case on mothers and returned their children back because of this very same thing.
I would love to be able to talk to those people. You think we could, not right now, of course, but after the show, I could get that person's name and reach out. Yeah, I would love to.
Yeah,
that's fantastic, man.
Yeah, and in fact, one of the things that we did is, I don't know if you heard that there was a couple who having their first baby. They went to the hospital. The mother was tested for COVID. She came back negative, and then right before she was about to give birth, they tested her again. Somehow it come back positive. So she delivered the baby. They immediately took the baby and took the baby away from the parents. They were never able to hold them, never able to even really see them, nothing. And they said that they were not going to release the baby what they had to do is the parents had to discharge, leave the hospital. They had to quarantine for 14 days. Then they had to take a test. If it came back negative, then they had to wait another 10 days, and then they could come get the baby. And we got involved. We began to distribute this information. We had people calling the hospital, people showing up at the hospital. There was hundreds of people that were showing up and thousands of people that were coming. The hospital saw how this was going to be a major problem for them. They blamed it on the Washington Department of Disease Control and released the baby to the parents, and they went home.
Man, I tell you, that's great stories, because sadly, a lot of them don't end well with CPS. A lot of them end up when children are taken, and parents just never know sometimes where they're even at. But that's fantastic. Yeah, I'll connect with you after the show, and we'll get, if you send me that contact information, or reach out to them and see if it's okay. And I like to call them, and because that's just that's an inspiring story. I mean, we could use that in every state, because this stuff goes on in every state. Well, in the meantime, until we can pull everybody together, which sounds like you're doing quite nicely, the constitutional sheriff is the person, the guy or the gal that stands between us and the federal government, and is sort of, they're supposed to be a buffer between us and the feds. Sadly, like the pastors, the sheriffs have not acted constitutionally in a lot of places. There are good ones, no doubt about it. Sheriff Mack, Denny Pyman used to be a constitutional sheriff there in Kentucky, and others. But there's not many left these days. So we need to work to get constitutional sheriffs. Talk if you can how important that is, Ammon, to get constitutional sheriffs in. I mean, they're the firewall for us right now, currently, until we can come together. Do you find that to be accurate?
Yeah, I mean, our structure of government, if you kind of, let's say you have individual, and you have them in the middle of the chalkboard or middle of the page, and then you take and you write it, you draw a circle around that person, then you draw another circle around that person, and then you draw another circle around that person, and the outer circle would be, let's say, the federal government. And remember, the target or the protection is the person, their individual rights. The federal government is supposed to defend that person's right against the rest of the world. Then you have you have the state, and the state is actually supposed to protect the individual rights against the federal government. Then you have a circle inside that, and you have the county. And the county is actually supposed to protect the individual against the state. And then you got, let's say if you want to do another one, or maybe you could say also that the county circle is the sheriff. Well, that sheriff is supposed to be the legal last line of defense before the person has to act themselves in defending individual right. And ultimately, those circles are there, and they've been established for the purpose so the individual can be free, live without fear, own property without it being taken, be able to freely trade and travel. That's what's kept us ultimately made us so prosperous and kept us free in this country. But what we have now, we have the federal government who's now is focused and targeted the individual rights. You have the state is focusing and targeting the individual rights. And you have the county and the county sheriffs that are faltering in defending the individual rights. And so the people are left, literally left to themselves to defend their own rights, which it is their responsibility to do. But man, if you could get a sheriff to help you, it makes such a difference. If you could get the state to help you, it makes such a difference. And if you could get the federal government to do their job, well, possibly we can go back to being prosperous and free and living according to our inherent rights.
Indeed, and that is, I think one of the things that we're seeing across the country is there are people that are, and I don't really know. We didn't really talk about what you think about the election and Trump, and it really doesn't. I mean, it matters, but in a sense, it doesn't matter based upon what you just stated. It's always should be up to the individual should always take the responsibility of guarding their liberties themselves. They can't rely on, and we can see now, these so-called elected representatives. Listen, they get where they're going, and then their immediate plan is to enrich themselves or get reelected. I mean, it's not your rights, and it's not what's important to you. And I've often said, if the mask worked, Ammon, they wouldn't have let us wear them. If the mask worked, so I mean, right? They would have told us that we couldn't wear them. So moving forward, besides going to your organization and coming together, to start, even if there's no organization, can you start one? If there's not one, like I have no idea around my neighborhood at all if there's anybody there. So if there's not, you can put an application into your group.
That's right. So
go ahead.
Yeah. So if there's not an area established or the state's not organized into areas, then that's simply because we're looking for people to step up and take leadership in that. The people's rights is a communication network is really what it is. It's not a hierarchy. It's not really even an organization, yet we are organized. It's a communication network. And if it's not organized in your area yet, it's simply because we just haven't found the right people to take those tools that we have built and to begin to use them and implement them in that area. So there's ways. If you join, then you can go to your area. If it's not organized, there'll be some information there. It says help wanted, and you can go through some questionnaire, and it goes through a process in which we can look at the answers to your questions, and then we would call you, and then we would once we feel confident that you would treat and use the tool appropriately for the benefit of your rights and the rights of your neighbors, then you can become what we call an area or a state assistant and get your area organized.
Do you still do any travel engagements, Ammon? I'd like to perhaps, and I'm going to put you on the spot, we can talk after, but I'd like to see if maybe in the spring or something you want to come out here to Kalispell, and I could sponsor you to come out here and do a speaking engagement or something. Is that stuff you still do? Do you still do that?
Yeah, I promised my wife that through the holiday season I wouldn't take any, and so
Sure.
I've kept that promise and intend to. But yeah, when spring comes around, there's a good possibility I'll be doing a little traveling again.
That'd be wonderful. Okay, we're just coming to the end of the interview here, Ammon. It's always great to have you here on the show. Peoplesrights.org, peoplesrights.org, or we text to, let me go down here, we text, what do you text? What word do you text? Rights. So you text rights to 80123. 80123. Now, when they type rights to 80123, does that send back like a membership kind of link where you can get linked up? Is that what it does?
It sends you back a link, and then you click on that, and you just fill out some simple information and select the area you live in, and then you become part of that neighborhood.
Fantastic stuff, Ammon. Is there anything you want to say before we let you go, or anything that we didn't get a chance to cover here that you wanted to bring up before we close out the interview?
Oh, not a lot, but I appreciate your interview and your effort to educate people. I think ultimately what I would leave with is just to reemphasize that, it is your rights. God gave you rights. Your body belongs to you. Your life belongs to you. The right to travel, the right to worship, the right to trade with each other belongs to you. And it was never given to government. It was never given to other men. It is yours. And the way that you maintain those rights, the way that you ensure that those rights continue available to you, is you claim them, you make sure everybody around you knows them, you use them, you must continue to use them, you must benefit from them. And then when someone comes to take them or infringe upon them, you must defend them. You have to answer the question. The one thing you must not do is allow someone to infringe upon them and you not respond. You must continue to use them, claim them, and then defend them. So thank you.
Well put, Ammon. So much appreciate you always taking time to come on the broadcast, and we certainly look forward to talking to you again. Enjoy your holiday season with your family. Please tell your brother and your dad and all your kin folk there that we said hello here at Northwest Liberty News, and hopefully we can get down there maybe next year down to the ranch there and see you guys down there. That'd be great. Thanks so much, Ammon. Appreciate you being on the show as always, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks, brother. Take care.